Hi, Andres. I am super glad to have you as our first guest of Remote Network channel. And I became very amazed on the fact that you started offering marketing services when you were only 13 years old and that you sold your marketing agency after 8 years of being in the business to build Torre. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Right now, you are the Chief Growth Officer at Torre, and that's amazing. But tell us, how did you get to this point, and what did you see in the world of work that pushed you to make this decision?
Sure. To be completely honest, when I was working with my agency, it was evident to me that I was really running on a hamster wheel, so to speak. I was waking up every day, going to create advertising, going to create marketing strategies, going to create um, business digital transformation plans that would provide some value for these companies, but then it would die. The value that I was creating, it would die very quickly, and then we will need to start all over again, right? Creating new marketing plans, new business strategy plans, and so on. So I thought to myself, well, how can I invest my time in a way that whatever I'm working on, it just keeps on compounding value and keeps on creating value that is longer lasting or ever long. Um, and and definitely building product was something that I aimed to do. I started to experiment in ways about building product within my own agency, using the money from that I was getting from the clients to build my own products and experiments. But I quickly realized that I just did not have enough experience and knowledge on how to do it, and that I needed to figure out a way to get that knowledge and that experience fast. And that is where life showed me the path and introduced me to Alexander Torrenegra. He's my co-founder and he's the CEO of Torre. And he is a person that has been for 17 years working on products or digital businesses that help people find work and help companies find talent very quickly. One of these companies, voice123.com, the largest voiceover marketplace on earth, and then Bunny Studio, which is a mission critical creative outsourcing platform. Again, both companies help organizations find talent for specific niches, but very quickly. And so I got introduced to him, and he invited me to work on the marketing side of things for Torre. And it made all the sense in the world because I was going to be able to learn how to build product, learn how to build businesses that compounded its value. The more that I invested time on it, the more compounded value that I will get out of it. And it aligned a lot with something that I was very passionate about, which was building things that actually made a long-lasting impact in people's lives. Of course, Torre's mission is to make more fulfilling for everyone, and we're focused on helping people find professional opportunities that are fulfilling for them quickly. And that's the two main motivations. In other words, a very practical side of it. I wanted to learn how to build product and build businesses that compound it. And on the other hand, there was a very missionary aspect to it, and that is that I wanted to do that through creating long-lasting impact for people.
And what did you observe in the world of work that inspired you to make a change? Like, what
Well,
was happening then?
to find work and to find talent is a task, or as we call it in startup world, a job to be done that just takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. And the cost is not really, well. There's of course a cost associated to it in terms of time and resources and so on. But the bigger cost really is that humanity is not finding fulfillment in their work, and it's not making the most of its capacities, of its abilities, of its virtues. And I think that we're wasting just so much talent because we're not matching the right people to the right professional opportunities.
Mhm.
So that is in essence what we're trying to fix here. That is something that I saw very early on as I started to learn more about the opportunity, and that immediately catched me and has made me invest several years of my life and a lot of time and effort and sweat and tears and investment and emotional investment as well. Because yeah, I truly believe that the market is ready for technological innovation that can help us find fulfilling work faster. And for companies and organizations, there is a cost associated to not being able to achieve that quickly. That I believe companies and organizations are more than willing to change.
Totally agree. And if I'm not being indiscreet, how old are you? And we know you started this at your age 13, but how old are you now?
I'm 23. I'm about to
Wow.
turn 24 in December. Yeah.
You said you like to travel, so what are the main five elements you look for in your workspace to maintain you healthy and maintain you focused and with a clear mindset?
Yeah. So very quickly, my work arrangement essentially is a standing desk. I just recently got this one. Before I got this one, I was using a combination of fixed sitting desks and fixed standing desks that I coupled up with the cheap materials and so on. And I would have that set up in Toronto. I will have that set up in San Francisco, and I now have that set up here in Bogota. But essentially, it's a standing desk, goes up and down. I have Soto's audio system. Essentially, I got the best possible audio system that I could get for my money, and a big 43-inch super extra hyper something wide screen from Samsung. It's the highest resolution I could get for this size. A webcam, my keyboard, and a little pad that has. I'll be more than happy to send pictures, but a little pad that has. It's a fake leather, kind of the vegan leather pad, so that I keep my workstation clean and comfortable. Sometimes I sit, so I have an ergonomic chair, and sometimes I stand, so I have a standing pad. This is not the best arrangement if you want to be traveling around.
Yeah.
So usually when I am traveling around, I have just my keyboard, my trackpad, and a standing kind of support for my laptop, so it serves as a screen. And that is it. My AirPods and so on, and that is pretty much it. But I found that for me to be at my peak of productivity, I need to have a space. There's a minimum viable of tools that I need to have for me to be at my peak productivity and focus. And that's just because of my personality. There's a lot of people that they can focus with just a laptop on a couch and with a very weird position, like half sitting, half laying down. But that's not my case. I need some form of structure for me to be able to focus and be productive and healthy.
And moving to another subject about remote wellness, we know that remote work is not only an HR issue, but it affects all areas of organizational management. And since COVID-19, remote workers are truly expected to juggle between their personal and work lives without this needed support. How have you juggled with this experience yourself, and how have you incorporate this good manners of taking care of your employees at Torre?
So we have there's two things that we had to change with the way that we manage the wellness of our team through COVID-19. The first one is, well, of course, there was no longer a working budget, so because it made no sense, people had to stay at their homes. But many used that budget to buy equipment for their homes. So a better desk, a better chair, a better screen, and so on. And additionally, we expanded the policy of the health stipend that we had from physical healthcare to also mental well-being. So now our team can use the budget that we have for that to get into therapy sessions, or pay for the subscription of our meditation app, or buy equipment that allows them to do some yoga or meditate. There's these new headbands that you can use to meditate, and my team can buy those with the healthcare budget that we have. So those were the two main things that we had to change. Some are already going back into co-working spaces because their country allows them to. Some, like me, are staying at home for now. But essentially, those were the changes that we had to make. For me personally, the COVID-19 was very tough because it forced me to stay alone in a small apartment. I have a small apartment here in Bogota because I didn't spend most of my time. I spent it, in other countries and so on. So I was not prepared to be, locked down for several weeks without being able to go out. I am changing my life setting. I'm moving. So I moved 6 months of this year to a little town close to Bogota. It's called Villa de Leyva, and I rented a house to be able to be surrounded by green and so on. And then I also, so right now I'm moving to another house now for a 1 year lease, where I'm going to have a pool and more green and so on. So I'm able to do that because I I am leveraging the arbitrage of compensation that happens when you work for a U.S. based company that has U.S. based clients and funding and so on, but you're living in a relatively cheap country like Colombia. So that's why I'm able to go and rent a house for 6 months or go and change to a house that has a pool. Otherwise, it would have been impossible. Like doing this. Maybe it will have been possible. One of my friends, I was living with him in San Francisco, and we rented a house together, and he stretched his budget a little bit to be able to rent a bigger house, also with colleagues, with roommates, and so on. But that was also I think a good decision. He now has all kinds of wild animals visiting him because it's a house that it's a little further away from San Francisco. It's more on the Berkeley Hills, but he's enjoying that a lot, and I think that it's the smartest thing you can do if you can afford it.
Yeah, totally. And what do you think it's the most difficult mindset to break in a company and in remoters since COVID-19?
So the most difficult mindset, it depends on whether your company was already remote or not. If your company was already remote, there was a portion of remote work that people could move around, and that made people very happy. Like personally, the idea of being able to travel around the world and work from wherever was something that made me very, very happy. But I couldn't do that anymore with COVID-19. So, and that is the case, I know, for many of my teammates. I have, an algorithms engineer in the Netherlands that was planning like a 90-day round trip around Europe on his motorcycle, and now he couldn't do it because of COVID-19, right? So that, of course, it's a big bummer, but you have to get used to being in place and not being able to move around that much. And then for companies that were not, remote first before COVID-19, I mean, that was a shit show for them. I know a lot of companies. I know a lot of people that were in similar situations. I think that they adapted very well, very quickly. A lot of companies invested in the necessary equipment for their people to work from home and the necessary space. But there was a lot of social interaction and communication and leadership best practices that companies just didn't have. So being able to break the old traditional kind of walking the floor leadership style and going into a more performance-based style, management style, was definitely a big challenge for companies through COVID-19. I would say in general, yeah.
Would you say this last challenge is the biggest opportunity as well?
I think that yes, but not just for remote companies, for any company transitioning from a traditional leadership structure and just leaders that are leaders just because they're bosses and because they have people in charge of and transitioning to actually being leaders and actually understanding what being a leader is and learning how to be a leader and getting coaching about it and attending to professional education programs about it. It's a big change of mindset, and it's going to change your business for the better with COVID, with no COVID, with remote or without remote. Transitioning towards performance-based management and best practices of leadership is always a good idea. It's going to transform any organization.
Totally agree with you. And now that you're talking about this, we know that remote work is an alternative that not only reduces gender, ethnic, or age gaps, but you talked about at Remote Future Summit about this universal standard income model, and I would like to talk about it because it's very interesting because we now have companies that are hiring people from Mexico or from Colombia, expecting to give them a less money because it's cheaper, but it shouldn't work like that.
Yeah, well, the reality is that so the whole compensation model for remote workers cross borders, it's very complicated. It's not something that I don't have the perfect answer, but if we look at how economics work, it's in its essence, it's demand and supply. So the more demand that is for a certain talent, well, the more expensive that the supply it's going to be. It's that simple. So when we open to cross-border remote work, and we are doing that, hopefully not as fast as some people would guess or would think. We're very slow in that transition yet, and I say.
I think I lost you there.
Yep, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So moving into remote cross-border, it's going to have a transition period where the economics of it are going to be very messy. You're going to have engineers that are going to be working remotely, earning $30,000, and you're going to have engineers with the same quality of work being done, with the same level of skill and knowledge and so on, working remote for $60, $70, $80,000. And it's going to be very messy because companies that are not at the top of the game are going to be losing talent very quickly for companies that are ready to pay more, and companies that pay more eventually are going to realize, you know what, it doesn't make sense for us to be paying $150,000 for an engineer that we could pay 80,000 or 60,000. So naturally, there's going to be a balancing out effect of all this, and we're going to have a somewhat standardized universal income for the different roles of the different companies. But there's going to definitely be a transition period, and there is going to definitely be, from my perspective, another side of it where no matter where you are in the world, if you're working remote, the standard compensation for you as a senior engineer is, I don't know, $60,000. And you can choose with those $60,000 to go and live in New York and live miserably because New York is extremely expensive and $6,000 doesn't buy you shit. Or you can go and live in Medellin and live with $6,000 like a king, or whatever else town or city you want to go. That is going to exclude certain companies and certain talents. Let's say you have a company that requires, I don't know, you're manufacturing robots and you need to physically be there manufacturing the robots, and you happen to have your factory in the middle of San Francisco because that's where you got the funding and that's where you get all the resources, and you need, for whatever reason, you need to be there. Well, that engineer, of course, you can't pay to that engineer $6,000. There's no way that person is going to live in San Francisco for that. So of course this rule excludes a lot of companies and a lot of professionals. And you as a company, if you are not willing to pay the $150K for an engineer in San Francisco, well, for as much as you want them to work remote, if they want to continue living in San Francisco, you won't be able to retain them as talents. So that is, of course, going to be prohibitive for some companies and for some individuals to get into that bandwagon. But I think the transition is going to point that way, and at some point it's going to get normalized.
And how do you think companies should be stepping forward into this issue?
Well,
not just to leave it like that, like it has to happen, but how can they address it?
Yeah, well, it depends of your company, of how competitive you are, of how strong your business model and business proposition is, of how well positioned you are. There are certain companies with weak business models, with weak positioning, with weak financials. They're not going to be able to pay $60,000 for an engineer. There's software factories in Colombia, my country. Their business model essentially is for companies in the US to buy software from them and for them to underpay engineers to be able to make money in the difference, right? And well, by definition, they need to underpay engineers to be able to make money. But if engineers are no longer willing to work for that pay, then they're gonna be out of business, So the best way that companies can prepare for this is to know that this is going to happen, and if this affects them, they need to quickly reinvent themselves and their business models and whatever it is that they're offering to be in a stronger position, because if not, the market is going to eat them alive.
Okay, thank you. And moving to our closure section, what should companies and remoters be looking for in the remote work experience? What do you think?
So what you look for in the remote work experience is diversity, efficiency, and work-life integration. Those are the three things that I think are the most important ones. Diversity, because you want to have a diverse pool of talent and to find the best possible talent for your company. The best possible for your talent for your company is not just a matter of the skill set or the experience that they have. It's also a matter of, are they aligned with your mission, with your team's culture, with the way that you do things, with what you're trying to achieve. That is also very important because those are some of the factors that make people stay in the company. The main reason why leaders are hired is because of their technical capacity. The main reason why leaders are fired is because of their personality, of their professional culture, of them not being able to match their team appropriately. So that is something that companies need to be able to realize, and of course leverage. When you have access to a global talent pool, then you can be a little bit more strict about finding someone that really matches your culture, your mission, your values, the plan that you have for your company, and from that diversity as well, get different points of view. People from different cultures and different countries have way different points of view of the world, and that is very valuable for a team that wants to be innovative, for a team that wants to have different approaches to solving problems, and so on. The second one is efficiency. So working remotely, it's once you nail it, there is a lot of performance-based management, and of course there is a lot of, we need to be efficient with our time. We need to work hard, of course, but we also need to work smart. So by working remotely, you kind of have to force your team into thinking, what is the smartest way that I can be doing my job? It's not just a matter of going into an office, sitting in a chair and pretending like I'm working. Like, what is the goal that I want to achieve, and what is the best possible way for me to achieve this? And in remote work, it forces you to work that way. If you're not working towards performance-based management and towards giving people the tools to be as efficient as they can, the communication tools, the leadership tools, the physical hardware and so on tools, well, your team is not going to be as efficient as possible. And in the end, you're just going to be wasting money. And this is way more visible when you're working remotely. And finally, I would say that the work-life integration is something that you want to make the most of or are looking for, and that is you don't need the person to be working from 8 to 5, 9 to 5, or whatever it is. What you want is, as I was saying on the previous point, is you want to achieve certain goals, you want to get to certain milestones, you want to get things done, and you need to allow your team, and you want to look for a team that can manage themselves, manage their own time, and that can find work-life integration properly. If they want to stop in the middle of the day to have lunch with the family, or they need to stop in the middle of the day to go and do a medical appointment, or they just want to walk their dog for 3 hours or whatever it is, we want to look for that, because we want to empower our team and give them the tools to be able to be as fulfilled with their work as possible, but also to be as efficient as possible for the company. And working remotely allows you for that, because, you have to build the systems, you have to build the processes to communicate, to coordinate work, to follow up on projects and processes in a way that is as asynchronous as possible. That doesn't require you to be face-to-face talking about the issue, but you can send a message, send a Slack message, a Microsoft Teams message, or whatever it is, and try to follow up that way. It's possible. A lot of companies do it nowadays, and it's something that you can leverage as well.
Super. And what will remote work look like in 5 years, do you think?
It's not going to be, in 5 years, it's not going to be so much different than what it is for the companies that are spearheading remote work nowadays. Meaning, companies that are spearheading remote work nowadays have the best possible talent because they figured out how to get the best possible talent regardless of their location. They have a very structured program for people to fulfill their needs as professionals in terms of equipment, in terms of time management, in terms of project coordination, in terms of leadership, and so on. They have also figured out how to, build and maintain a culture within their companies. They have also figured out how to build relationships between their teammates. They have also figured out how to maintain their teams as efficient as possible. So in 5 years, what's going to change is that more and more companies are going to be adopting this, and then companies will have figured out things like the universal standard compensation plans, and they have figured out how to get things right. For companies that are already spearheading the change, I think it's going to change much. I think we're going to have a little bit more flexibility potentially, and things are going to normalize. It's very chaotic for companies like mine. We're still trying to figure out things like how do we communicate with each other, and we're still experimenting with the best way of doing that, and we change it every time. Like, we used to have one long daily meeting. Now we have 4 different daily meetings with different teams, and we keep on changing it. So the how, it's going to be changing a little bit for companies like us, but it's definitely going to be changing a lot for companies that are just getting into this process, and that is something that is really exciting.
Yeah, totally. And Torre, describe Torre in one word.
think transformative is the word.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. And what's your motto to get things done? What inspires you?
There is one quote from George Bernard Shaw, and let me find it because I'm awful at remembering exact things. I remember the idea. So the quote by George Bernard Shaw that motivates me, so to speak, is it's as follows: the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. And that's it. I am very unreasonable, and I need to make sure that my unreasonability transforms and into progress for the world.
Yeah, well, your unreasonability, yeah, has taken you far. So, cheers to that. So, thank you so much for your time, Andres. I am so thrilled to have had you for this 30 minutes, and I'm sure we can chat for another time.
Well, best of success on this new project, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Que tengas un lindo día.
Tú igual, Paula. Muchas gracias.
Chao.